actors with a perfect career. Let me introduce you to one, Rian Johnson.
That perfect career ends with this Q&A.
Right now, you walk into a room.
Is this a joke?
There's no ladder. The walls are butter smooth. All right, this is what I'd like to start with. And as you know, we've known each other a long time. I'm completely enamored of you as a filmmaker.
Likewise.
Like everyone, completely enamored with you as a writer. And I'm so curious because you're a magician. That's who you are as a filmmaker. Every time you bring us in, and we just sit there wondering, how could this possibly all wrap up? More than any other living director, frankly. And I'm so curious about your process. Do you start with an impossible question? Do you start with the answer and then work backwards? How does it begin?
Jason, thank you so much for doing this, first of all, and thank you guys for being here tonight at the beautiful Egyptian. So I started with flat rate, is the way I started.
Quiet for a
minute. Take 10 seconds of grace. I start with kind of two things. I kind of start with sort of a personal thing, kind of a question or a theme or something that I feel like I want to explore. And then I start with, typically, I guess I would phrase it as genre. I started with this, for example, it was, on one hand, wanting to, the challenge of this movie being kind of, especially after Glass Onion, which was kind of a big fun vacation comedy, with this one wanting to ground it, and the way into that for me was, okay, let me take one of the most personal things for me, see if I can, which is my relationship to faith, and in Christianity, and see if I can actually have kind of a conversation about that in the context of a Benoit Blanc big fun movie. So that was the first thing, and then not just the whodunit genre, but more specifically the impossible crime genre. It was sort of when, and I really only get started when those two things kind of click together like two gears, and I realize it's not about kind of hiding one inside the other, it's about those two things fitting together in a way where they both are playing off each other and inform each other and kind of are serving each other.
Which came first on this one?
It's hard to say. They were both kind of floating in the same time. I guess the notion of faith came first. I guess that kind of, at the same time I was discovering the author that I name check in here, John Dixon Carr. I was discovering his work, and he worked in the impossible crime genre. And he created, I'm realizing also Topo Chico was a mistake because I'm burping. I apologize. He also wrote in kind of like the gothic Poe-toned sort of vibe that this movie is
So
very
you're still reading his book. I always actually also wondered whether this was something that was a big part of your childhood, and whether if that fell off at a certain point, but you're still devouring this.
Yeah, I mean, Christy was a big part of my childhood. Especially since I've kind of blinked and realized that this is a big part of my life now, I was kind of like, oh shit. And I've started diving back in and trying to discover more Golden Age detective novelists, and there are so many to discover, and it's kind of exciting. I've gotten to know this wonderful guy, Otto Penzler, he's a legend in the mystery publishing world, and he owns the Mysterious Bookshop, which is in Tribeca in New York. And he basically, he has a little imprint that's kind of the Criterion collection of Golden Age detective novels. And every month they put out they find kind of out of print detective novels from like the 20s and 30s and 40s, and they put out like new editions of them. And so that's been like a huge resource.
Do you have a deal with him where he slips them to you first?
He mails them to me, and they pile up, and I feel like a bum because I have like 40 of them on my shelf. So yeah.
Was there a moment on this one where you ever got stuck?
This one was really, really tough. I was stuck in those.
Oh, can you give us an example? Like, what's a moment of you writing this where you are Benoit Blanc and you actually can't solve your own crime?
That's most of the moments. Literally, I can't isolate one. This was definitely the hardest thing I've ever written, and part of it though is the part of it was the fact that this was logistically a little bit tougher of a nut to crack in terms of the mystery. The bigger part of it though was the faith element. The bigger part of it was, I grew up very Christian. I didn't grow up Catholic. I grew up Protestant evangelical, but it was a big personal part of my faith, was a big personal part of who I was up through my early 20s. And I'm not a Christian anymore. And so it's very... Okay, coastal audience. So,
I've tracked 2 facts so far. He was drinking Topo Chico, and then a woman yelled from the back of the audience.
Oh, you're cracking the case.
I'm doing the clue.
You're doing the clue. I see how this is going. So anyway, so it's something that I have very deep roots in, and it's also something that I wanted to get right. And by get right, I mean I wanted to actually be a conversation about faith. And I didn't. On the one hand, I wanted the movie to have a generous spirit. And there's a lot of things about when I was a Christian that I really value right now, that I think the world, it's mostly the red parts of the New Testament, the stuff Jesus actually said. I think a lot of that the world needs more of right now. And there's a lot of stuff about my experience with faith that I have real issues with. And so I wanted to be a genuine conversation. I wanted it to be generous in spirit. At the same time, I didn't want to just be kind of tiptoeing around and not trying to offend anybody. And keeping that in balance with the mystery and with the tone of the whole thing, it was mostly a lot of being stuck and then very little isolated moments of the forward movement.
Well, when we talk about God and we talk about religion, we are literally talking about the greatest mystery on earth.
Well, that was part of the way. One of the moments that for me kind of gelled the whole thing, and I think Kaylee Spaney delivers it so beautifully in the movie. There's that moment where Blanc at the end is kind of, up on the pulpit, and he's like, I cannot solve this case, and she says, can't you just give us the answers? Is that what all this is for? And for me, her deep personal pain-driven need to have an answer from faith and to be healed, combined with the fact that we're all here to see a fucking detective movie. That's what this is all for. Can't you give us the answer right now? This is what this scene is for. The overlay of those two things was very much sort of, it was kind of the starting point for the whole thing.
Yeah, I feel, particularly through your Knives Out films, I see you working out your feelings about things. Your feelings about politics, this one clearly your feelings about religion. Is that on purpose? Do you think that's on accident?
No, that's on purpose. That's definitely like that was sort of the starting point for the first one. Was I wrote the first one right after the 2016 election, and it was in some ways very much about how a lot of us were processing that through conversations with our families. And but more than that movie was kind of the more personal thing for me about that movie was it was about money and family. It was about how money poisons the well.
You don't like rich people.
I don't know.
I take so much offense to these films.
I don't.
Intergenerational wealth is not the
It's not. Yeah, this is true. I don't like what money does to human relationships now. And that's one thing that in the first movie with family, and the second movie with friendship, and the third movie with what should be the most selfless kind of serving the people who need it the most thing in the world, which is Christianity and faith. I guess in that way, it's not a big intentional framework, but it very much is the way that money poisons the well of all three of those. Yeah.
And it's fascinating how you use Benoit. I see, and I think certain filmmakers do this, where we wish there was someone who would every once in a while just show up in our lives and just cut through it and be like, this is this is that, and it's like a scene in any home.
I feel like you're that for me. just like, oh yeah.
I feel lucky every time I get to sit down with you, and I feel like I learn something every time I'm with you. I'm curious, what did you learn on this film?
I mean, I guess, I don't know, and I'm sure you, and anyone here who makes stuff, and you, I mean, it's a tricky thing to answer, because the reality is, I think, you know, it's a several years process. It encompasses writing, which you learn so much or think you do when you're writing, and then you get on set and start working with the actors, and that, it feels like everything you learned when you were writing, you kind of learn the next step of when you're working with them, and then you get in post and it's a whole other level. And then there's just the life you live in this studio. I don't know, it's a hard question to answer. I feel like there's
your answer can be just, I learned nothing, I already knew.
No, it's the opposite of that. I feel like it's making movies is it's like in the superhero movies where you go into sort of the gamma ray machine or something, and then like it's a growth machine though. It's a personal growth machine, and that's a real privilege to get to do that and to get to have this intense several year experience where you bounce off of all of these people, and through conflict and through bonding and through all of that stuff, you kind of it's kind of in that way it's like college, not in terms of being taught something, but in terms of having this intense experience that's like a little crucible that moves you forward in life, I think. Yeah.
These films have extraordinary casts. Are you at a point where you can kind of just think of whoever you want as you're writing and go, yeah, you know what?
Well, no, it's
it feels like that. It feels
good.
like,
I like creating that illusion. Get me, yes.
Let's bring him on.
No, I know I mean, in some ways, especially now, we're very lucky because actors do know about the series, and also I think they know that people have a good time making these movies, and so that puts us a step ahead. At the same time, it's still a casting process. Our casting directors, Mary Vernew and Brett Howe, who we've used for many years, they still have the work cut out for them because we're going after the busiest people in the town. We're going after movie stars to
Is
play.
this a scheduling nightmare?
Oh, it's an absolute scheduling nightmare. Ron Bergman, my producer, is probably lurking off to there he is, right there. Yeah. Yes, it's an absolute scheduling nightmare, and it feels like a miracle when we close a deal and lands every single person in the cast.
Did you know anyone? Were you writing for anyone in particular when you started on this one?
No, not at all. I've kind of learned that's like a path to heartbreak. I don't know if you find this too, like just because inevitably, if you have someone in your head, but also, and you know this, like I think it would also be unfair because you're then not writing. It's not like you're writing for the person. You're writing based on another role you've seen them play.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think especially with this, it's more fun to give them something you haven't seen them do before, like Andrew Scott playing like a manosphere kind of like, you know, yeah. I was like, oh, I can't picture Andrew Scott in that role, and he's one of the best actors working today. Let's see what he does.
They all are. Roland's fantastic. I haven't seen Roland's act like that before. Did anyone in particular from the cast surprise you with their approach?
I mean, it would. To say that Glenn Close surprised me sounds insincere because she's Glenn fucking Close. But I'll tell you what did surprise me about Glenn though. She, because I think we were all a little bit intimidated with the notion of her showing up on set, and I know I was scared shitless just because I felt like she's gonna eat me for lunch. Like she's seen it all, done it all again, given all these amazing performances, and she showed up, and she doesn't suffer fools, but she's also lovely, and she's not mean. But the thing that surprised me was she didn't show up on set with kind of a den mother energy, or kind of like a sort of imperious energy. She showed up on set with the energy of a puppy dog. She showed up on meaning in regards to the work. She was so giddy with excitement to do the work of making a movie, and she was so joyous in every moment. And she had just this energy that like inspired everybody. Like Kaylee, the youngest in the cast, and me, and all the rest of the cast, we were all kind of drawing this energy from Glenn because she was just had this theater kid energy the whole time of we get to tell a story, and it melted my heart, and I love her so much, man.
You know what my favorite part of that is? When you have an actor like that show up and they just love the game and they're happy to be there, it means nobody else on set can act like a dick.
You have to try really hard to be an asshole.
Yeah, right?
You can do it, but you have to try really hard, but no one on our set did it.
You worked at the same DP forever, obviously with your cousin, just composed all of it. What does the beginning of the conversation with your cinematographer look like? Are you watching movies? Are you looking at photos together? Are you describing things? Are you drawing for him?
I mean, it's kind of a combo. Steve and I, we've been best friends since we were 17, so we have a real strong basis of we grew up, we've seen all the same movies and everything, so it tends to be more specific to the story. With this one, the first conversation was actually about, because I really wanted to get very theatrical with the light changes that happen, the natural light changes.
Yeah.
Those
are gorgeous, by the way.
Thank you. That's all Steve. It was, because the interior of that church was a set. It was a beautiful set that Rick Heinrich, our production designer, and his team built. And I talked to Steve about how all the scenes in that church, I wanted to have I grew up in Colorado where the clouds move very, very fast. And just the feeling when you're in a room of it being sun-drenched and warm, and then the sun goes behind a cloud, and like that, it's like God turns out the lights, and not only it getting incredibly dark, but also like cool in temperature, and the emotional vibe of the room changes.
Do you have all the lights on arms?
So it's all pre-rigged. It's all just a whole huge pre-rigged thing. The thing of it wasn't moving the lights around. It was Steve figuring out the computerized light control system, which he custom programmed, so that we could just be at his laptop and we could play these natural light changes like music. And so that meant we could rehearse the scene, and then in a repeatable way, we could shape it very organically on the day to what was happening, and do these complicated light changes just like with the touch of a button of doing the cue. And so it was this wonderful thing where we could just base it entirely off the emotion of what the actors were giving us, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, so an actor is doing that, literally you're watching a performance and he's waiting to hit a keystroke.
Yeah, or he'll hand, or sometimes he'll ask me if I want to do it. I'll be sitting, he gives me like a little game controller, and I'll literally be like,
does that make you nervous, or are you into that?
I love that. It's playing God. Are you kidding me? I control the sun. That's great. Or it was really fun. There's a scene. There's the kind of like the Twin Peaks scene where after Wicks punches Judd out in the little forest grove, and there's like a strobe light thing, like the firewalker thing, and we set up like 6 strobe lights, and Steve literally gave me, it looked like the Simon Press game thing, and I was sitting at the monitor just like, and it was so much fun. And
your first date, he's like, we got
yeah, someone take the controller away from mine.
I'm so curious, with a script that's so seemingly tight, what are you learning in editing while you're cutting a film like this?
I mean, so much.
Really?
Yeah, the thing that you don't do with these movies in editing, that sometimes you can do with other movies, you can't really move big chunks around. It's not like you have a thing of, oh, this scene could work well 3 scenes ago. It is very linear in that way, and that's harder to do. But what you're constantly doing with these movies, because you're fighting pace and you're fighting complexity, and you're trying to figure out how to constantly work out the pace, how to simplify anything that you can cut. You're figuring out how to cut, basically. So yeah, you're constantly there's a lot that's on the cutting room floor. The first cut of this was like over 3 hours long.
Really?
Oh yeah. There's a lot that we end up losing in the cut. Yeah.
And do you have to test the film differently to figure out whether the audience is getting it, whether they're getting it too soon? How do you figure out whether the audience is ahead of you or not?
I mean, we just kind of show it to people and ask. I mean, we show it to like friends and family first, and that can be really useful it's nice because that kind of stuff is very quantifiable. That kind of stuff you can ask were you ahead of it? You know, more out like 9 times out of 10, it's not that they were ahead of it; it's that they never got it, or they missed a big thing. So that's the bigger problem usually. So yeah, it's a constant kind of balancing act in terms of that. But the bigger challenge is, because that stuff you can kind of figure out. The bigger challenge is the stuff that's a challenge editing any movie. It's, are you engaged? Are they getting bored? Is it moving too fast? Is it, you know, emotionally landing? That's kind of where most of the work goes into.
This obviously this huge moment at the end where Benoit Blanc realizes he's not going to do the big reveal as he normally does. It's played to him early on. It's like, I know you want to do a big reveal. And of course, the moment I heard that, I thought of you, and I thought this is what filmmakers do all the time. They're leading a film up to a big reveal. And I'm curious, in writing these scenes and writing this film, is this something you were thinking about yourself? If you were thinking, oh, I love giving the audience this big move, and that's the moment where I do my written and directed by. And I'm curious, is that a moment of self-reflection for you as a storyteller?
I mean, kind of. I still put written about it, directed by it. So, but I mean, in a way, with this one, kind of, and that's really perceptive, because the truth is, with this one, I guess that was for me kind of reminding myself that, as opposed to the Blanc side of things, and here's the answer, really remembering the important thing with all these movies, which is the climax needs to be moving, and it needs to be impactful. In the climax is different than a reveal, and that's something that's really important in writing this type of movie, is never mistaking the reveal of information for a dramatic turn, and never mistaking the unveiling of who did it or why for an actual climax that's going to land with an audience and it's going to actually impact them. So the idea for myself of, well, especially at the end of this one, with so much complexity and so much kind of, you know, clever stuff in it, the notion of openly taking that away from myself, of saying, and this is not what the whole thing is the whole thing needs to land on the shoulders of Glenn Close, having this emotional moment, and more than that, of Josh O'Connor's character, Judd, giving that moment to her, and it's really the completion of his arc from the beginning of him wanting to be a good priest.
Right. This is a story that's a lot about faith. I'm so curious in this for anyone who's a screenwriter in the audience, whether they've written 100 screenplays or half a screenplay. It takes so much faith every time you sit down to write something that you're going to get to the end. And I'm curious how that's changed for you as a writer. Look, I mean, you just made the third movie in a series where the first one was nominated for an Oscar, the second one was nominated for a screenplay Oscar. When you sit down, where do you summon the faith to begin to write again? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
That is actually the honest answer. It's and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, everyone here who writes know that it doesn't matter what you, or it doesn't matter how good you're feeling the previous day or whatever. It's when you're saying, like with this one, it was dark. I think I talked to you when I was in the middle of writing this one. Like all my friends were kind of worried about me when I was writing it, because I had no faith at all. I was fucking, you know, I was in a Dostoevsky place in the middle of this.
I was trying to get you to become a Jew.
Next time. That's number 4.
Great.
Number 4. Benoit Blanc getting to back to it.
I could literally ask you a question for hours about this film and your work. You're brilliant. I feel lucky to know you. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Rian Johnson.
Thank you.